Yeehaw.
Yeehaw.
People think bullying is something that happens in school and then disappears when you get older.
Yeah, except in adulthood, they just call it management style or family drama or relationship problems, but it's still abuse. It just gets more subtle.
Welcome back to the Touch My Health podcast. My name is Matt.
I'm Katie.
Today we're going to be talking about bullying, not just in childhood, but how some of those same patterns show up later in life. The emotional bruises may fade, but the behaviors often follow us into our workplaces, our relationships, and can even determine our own self-talk.
Right. And if you were bullied as a kid, you might not realize how that shaped your boundaries or your lack thereof as an adult.
All right, let's start with childhood bullying as early conditioning because really that's where it starts is early in your childhood, going through school, you run into people that, bully you or people that don't like you for, X number of reasons. So what happens psychologically to someone who was bullied as a kid? Were you bullied as a child?
So yes, yeah, I don't want to laugh about it. It's not necessarily funny, but I was, and when I say a child, I mean elementary school days. Not so much necessarily middle school, kind of got out of it then. But I think when you're constantly humiliated or left out, especially as a child, your brain learns a rule. Stay small, stay quiet. You start avoiding conflict, overthinking, trying to fit in anywhere you can, which can lead some kids down the wrong path because they're fitting in with the wrong type of kids.
Hmm.
But I know for me, when I was a kid and I was facing the bullying, and it was off something so stupid. I used to get picked on a lot because of my, how my skin gets really red. I
Yeah.
blush very easily. I blushed very easily when I was a child, and even now as an adult, it happens to me, and my face gets red very easily. My whole chest gets red,
Yeah.
and kids are just rude. Kids are just assholes sometimes.
Yep.
And so I would get picked on a lot for that, which would just make it worse, obviously, because I'd be embarrassed. So that was really hard to tell myself, stay small and to stay, you know, quiet or don't, draw a lot of attention to myself because it was something I couldn't control. Um,
Yeah. And you weren't much of a sports person, so
no, no. And I didn't like to do, um, there's things I didn't do as a child, like sports or just extracurricular activities outside of school,
so you weren't
because
being oh.
I did, well, no, just because I didn't want the attention on me. I still, as an adult don't like, a lot of attention on myself.
So it's not like you were being left out, you were the last one picked for kickball or
Sometimes,
or
but
when you're picking, when you're in
bullying.
PE and you're the last one picked, it's super embarrassing and sometimes that can be the start of bullying because people start making fun of you because nobody wants you on their team or
Well, I think a good thing that we should have established first is what exactly is bullying? When we think of childhood, what is bullying? Because there are people nowadays, but there are people now who would say some kids, bullying's okay. It's not a big deal. Like,
hmm.
some people just, are too sensitive or whatever. And I think there's a very fine line.
There is.
Um,
I think hazing is what it's called now more so often than bullying, and that's kind of become the buzzword. But to me, bullying is being picked on, being having things thrown at you, or people shoving you into the corner, or checking you into the wall, or just walking by and stealing your hat and throwing it. It
yeah.
can be a number of things, being called names and back in the day, you get swirlies in in the toilet, or just being picked on for no reason because you're the small kid. Like in
Hmm.
in my instance, I was always the smaller one. So a lot of times I would get picked on because uh, I was small. I was typically the smallest one in the class height wise, and then I could not say my R's. I would say them as W's, and so when I would talk, I sounded very childish. And I had to go through a lot of speech therapy because when I would say like the word run, it would sound like one when
Hmm.
so my R's,
Now as an adult, we're like, that's so cute.
yeah, it's so cute. But as when you're going through
Yeah, as a kid,
school,
it's
kids are picking on you. And
yeah.
I played a lot of sports, and I remember being on the basketball court and the baseball field, and people would the kids would just sit there and mock me
Hmm.
because of the way that I spoke. And it can really be detrimental to your own self-worth and the way that I was talking. I would hear it in my head, and people would the kids would just mock the way that I talked. And it really kind of made me self-conscious about the way that I spoke.
But your reaction to that and to bullying was very different than mine because your initial reaction and response was fight,
Yes.
whereas
Yeah.
mine was shut down and avoid conflict. And I think that's part of that nervous system getting programmed to
Hmm.
believe that conflict means, however you handled that when you were
Yeah.
a child. Like for
Yeah.
me, peace meant silence. And so even as an adult, shut down to avoid confrontation, whereas peace doesn't necessarily mean silence,
No.
and you don't shut down to avoid confrontation. You meet it head on
Hmm.
and almost, whereas I have to learn to be okay with confrontation, you had to learn to be okay with just having a peaceful confrontation, not turning it into violence every time,
Yeah.
So we have
Yeah.
like very,
Different ways of confronting the bullying.
yeah.
I definitely saw bullying as you thought you were tougher than I was,
Hmm.
and I'm going to prove to you that I can beat your ass,
Hmm.
that I can outpower you. And that was the way that my piece was, because once we fought, now we knew
Hmm.
who was tougher or who was stronger. And that was my piece. That was my inner peace, was knowing that I bested you in a fight.
Yeah. And yeah, totally opposite
I
for
didn't
me.
shut
But
down though.
I do think we should make this disclaimer about, when we talk about bullying and childhood bullying, it looks so different today versus how when you and I were kids. And, back to my earlier point about some people saying, well, people are making a big deal. Like I've read things online, parents even saying like, kids getting bullied is normal. People sitting here talking about how kids getting bullied is just making this generation softer or something like that. And that's why I said there's a very fine line and that you have to draw in the sand. And nowadays with kids, it's a lot of online,
Oh God.
social bullying,
Yeah.
which is
Keyboard warriors.
horrible because some kids, that I think is much more detrimental to your mental health than
Yeah.
whereas, because that doesn't go away. Like it's out there forever on the internet
Mm.
or Snapchat or wherever.
Yep.
And I still think that bullying is a very serious thing for children and people should not dismiss it. Now, are there certain things where it's like, okay, you can just brush that off. But if a child is constantly being called names or physically hit or pushed or shoved, I mean, they're going to school every day and people are just being awful and mean and cruel to them,
Yeah.
posting things online, whatever the case may be. That's not okay. That is not okay. And we're not making this generation softer by saying that it's not okay and sticking up for your child or having your child stick up for themselves because we 100% tell our kids if someone is bullying you
Yeah.
or, you have every right to defend yourself however you
100%.
feel necessary. And if your kid touches my kid has permission to whip your kid's ass. If
Correct.
you don't like that, I'm sorry, that is your opinion.
Yeah, that's how I've always felt about it too, and that's how my brain was programmed in thinking that once you come into my space,
Hmm.
now you have crossed that boundary. You've crossed a line, and not so much of it being abusive or something like that, but I felt vulnerable. And again, like you said, if your kid touches my kid, letting my child defend herself is how I thought it should be and how I think it should be. Because kids can be very ugly with their words, and that can lead to child suicide. And it can lead to, kids hurting themselves because of what some other child is saying and how they're being bullied, especially online and social media. It's gotten far more worse. And I know Zuckerberg has been under fire for it,
Hmm.
and a lot of the other social medias have been really under a microscope because of the bullying online.
Yeah, and just what kids can put out there. I mean, what not just kids, anyone can put out there.
Speaking of being vulnerable, do you think being bullied makes you more vulnerable to abuse later in life, like into your adulthood?
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, I know for me, absolutely. You normalize mistreatment, when you're used to being talked down to or, ignored,
Hmm.
manipulated, that kind of behavior feels familiar and even comfortable later. And so when for me, like normal was kind of feeling mistreated in a sense, or
Hmm.
or not feeling like you fit in or feeling ignored. And so I think, yeah, for sure, for me, it became a lot easier, and I was much more um, vulnerable, and the
Like it,
abuse, like I think, yeah, I don't think I intentionally picked out abusive people as far as romantic relationships, but
right.
I think abusive people can see those vulnerable types of people and
That
pick
can,
them out.
yeah, and that can lead to, like you said, that feeling of familiarity and
Hmm.
almost where that bullying and that mistreatment becomes normal to you. And because you learn to tolerate it,
Yeah.
you learned as a child to tolerate it in your early life. So you might not recognize it when it happens again, especially if it's wrapped up in charm or authority in a relationship.
Yeah, exactly. I 100% agree.
Yeah, it can lead to a a very bad road of the people you pick to have a emotional or sexual relationship with.
Hmm.
And some of that, like you said, the people that prey on vulnerable people, they can sometimes read or probably do read you as a vulnerable person, and that could be why they choose people that are more reserved or shut down in conflict.
Yeah, oh, for sure. I mean, so that kind of transitions into the topic of, bullying in adulthood and
Hmm.
and what does adult bullying look like
Well,
versus the childhood?
yeah, it can look very similar, with a few differences, of course,
Hmm.
because it's not always physical in adulthood. It could be the name calling. It's a coworker who constantly undermines you, or even the family member who guilt trips you, and the partner that mocks you when you're speaking and they're like, "Oh, haha, it's just a joke. I'm just kidding."
Yeah, you're too sensitive.
Yeah, your buzzword. And
My trigger word.
yeah, there's a lot of not joking in some of that sarcasm.
Passive aggressiveness. Yeah. I mean, adult bullying hides behind sarcasm, I think for sure.
Hmm.
Exclusion, manipulation. Um, but the effects are the same. It's controlling through fear or humiliation, trying to make you feel less than or smaller than them.
Yeah.
Um, but I think a good one that people probably don't, that you said realize too, is the workplace environment bullying.
Oh, yeah.
As an adult, like
Right.
that coworker who undermines you or who always, maybe tries to take credit for something and then throw you under the bus
Hmm.
later,
Hmm.
or, in the workplace, I think as an adult is probably, aside from relationships, like romantic relationships, that's probably got to be at the top three
Yeah.
of adult bullying.
Yeah, they're stepping on you to get, say, a manager role or a
Hmm.
supervisor role, so they throw you under the bus. And it's a form of bullying. And I think sometimes it gets minimized because as you're an adult, you know, it looks different.
Hmm.
So speaking of minimization, why do people minimize adult bullying?
Because we think, as adults, we think adults should be able to handle it.
Yeah.
We're older. We're we're older, so let's assume we're more mature, we're smarter. We should be able to take it. But emotional abuse doesn't just get easier because you get older.
Right.
Generally, it means that we just stuff it down more as we get older and try to ignore it, which then can snowball into horrible results and
Yeah.
things like that.
Yeah. And as an adult, you're supposed to be able to handle that conflict and excusing the toxic behavior because we're taught that confrontation equals conflict, especially if we grew up bullied.
Yeah, I mean, and like I said, I can attest to that personally. Um, Excusing toxic behavior or excusing things that shouldn't be excused,
Hmm.
because for me, confrontation equals conflict, and I don't like conflict. I don't like confrontation. I never have. And this was a realization I came to not very long ago, that I think a lot of that for me started as a child being bullied. And I don't think that, saying that, I don't think it means, like I'm saying I had this horrible childhood and I was just, oh my gosh, people were mean to me all the time. And like,
Yeah.
no, it was more detrimental, but I didn't realize that the effect it had on me into adulthood.
Hmm.
And even, like I said, until just recently, kind of uncovering some of those things and realizing, oh, that makes sense that that's where it started or
Hmm.
came from. And I didn't have a terrible childhood, but those beginning childhood years definitely stuck with me. And there's things I remember from them that I 100% believe shaped who I am as an adult. And I remember more of those. Those are more core memories than remembering good things,
Hmm.
which to me says that it had a traumatic effect on me. And that is why I probably, some of my traits and habits and things that I do are because of that.
Yeah, and that's what's crazy. I actually was just talking to my doctor about this yesterday, is how those core memories or things that happen to you from the age of 7 till the age of, say, 16 really shape you as an adult. And it's just crazy the way that your brain holds on to that and again makes you more vulnerable or makes you turns you into the adult that you are, and how you handle that conflict. It's just so crazy that those
Hmm.
are the core years for your brain, because this is what she said, is that your brain is not fully developed. So those traumatic experiences stick with you, and it is the way that you learn yourself and the way that you learn to speak to yourself.
And keep yourself safe and things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, when did I don't know. I read it somewhere about when our brain stops, like when we stop growing, or do
25,
we ever stop?
27. Yeah, I don't
I don't
know.
know.
The your frontal lobe is the last one to fully develop. And my nurse friend said that it's either 25 or 27, that your frontal lobe, where all of your decision making
Hmm.
is the one that is last to develop, which is so crazy. And it could be why myself and many others have made such piss poor decisions through your 20s, because your brain's not even developed.
Yeah, and habit forming, good habit forming really comes into play in
Mhm.
those types of situations too. Um,
And it's learning to break that pattern, that, bullying and other traumatic experiences happen to you. Which brings me to my next question of, how do you break free from those dynamics of bullying as an adult?
First, boundaries for sure. You have to set very solid boundaries to, talk to yourself. What are my boundaries? What am I okay with? What am I not okay with?
Mm.
And then also being able to say no. I know for me personally, that's a hard thing.
And being
Be
okay with saying no.
and being okay with saying no.
Hmm.
You have to stop negotiating your worth with people who keep discounting it. Saying no, walking away, that setting boundaries, that's not being rude. It's recovery. It's a way to start healing yourself. It's a way to establish good habits,
Hmm.
good skills.
Yeah, there's a Dr. Seuss quote that I love so much. It says, "Be who you are, say what you feel, because those who matter don't mind, and those who mind don't matter."
That's
It's
good old
one of my
Dr.
favorite
Seuss. I love Dr. Seuss. That's a good one.
little childhood quote that has stuck with me.
So good. Little piece of my childhood, or my little inner child just smiled and was like, "Oh my God, that's so cool."
And
Uh,
really, healing starts when you stop proving yourself to people who enjoy watching you shrink down when they're
mm-hmm.
bullying you. And when you can start healing yourself and proving to yourself that you matter, and those people that do matter will come to you
They will
and will
stay
show
with
up
you.
for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think on the flip side of this, um, the person who is the bully or the people who are bullies, I firmly believe that people who bully, whether it's a child or an adult, there's something going on with them.
Yep.
There's something, when it's a child, I would look at the home, something going on with them mentally, internally.
Yes.
And as an adult, to me, it's something that was never healed from childhood.
Yeah,
So,
because of my fighting, because of my childhood, conflict resolution was always physical. I was called a bully at times. And
because you wanted to
because I always
fight
wanted to
people.
fight, it meant that, I was bullying someone, and that could be true. And it was because of looking back now, it's because of the abuse that I was enduring at home. So when
Mhm.
you say take a look at what's going on at home, take a look at that child's home life and the way that they're being raised, it's 100% true
Mhm.
because I was being physically abused at home. So therefore, I was turning around and physical violence and conflict resolution
Mhm.
was my go-to.
But would you say that you were a bully in the sense that you were just going around picking fights with kids for no freaking reason, or was it just more of a response? Because I think of bullies as people who do it, who are just, they do it for their own like self gratification. Like it fills a void or makes them feel a certain type of way. They get pleasure from it,
Hmm.
or they either think that's just how they're supposed to act because it's a learned behavior, it's something they're seeing or emulating, whatever. But if you're doing that in response to someone picking on you or you're defending yourself, I don't think that's being a bully. Now, if you're walking up
No.
to people like, "Hey, shrimp tard," and then
Right.
trying to start a fight, I mean, yeah, then you're kind of being a bully.
Yeah. And I wasn't always perfect for sure. I mean, there were times when I did pick a fight. So I wouldn't say my every day was a bully. Uh, but there were times when I was guilty of bullying for sure. I would
Hmm.
never say that I was perfect.
Hmm.
And there are a couple of fights that I picked. Um, and I don't know. I wouldn't say that I was a bully all the time, but I was definitely not,
Hmm.
I wasn't making the right decisions
Yeah.
for sure. And it was a lot of learned behavior. It was a
Hmm.
lot of the pattern going on in my house, fighting with my brother and sister. And there was a lot of times where uh, the bullying that I was receiving was then, like you said, a learned behavior, and I was outwardly casting that. And sometimes with bullies, they're internally weak. And so they're trying to
Yeah.
portray this strength
That's a
and
good point.
macho man kind of uh,
Hmm.
aptitude of themselves. And it's a very false narrative. And I don't think as a child you know that. But as an adult, you really, through your life, should be able to realize that.
Yeah. Self-reflection is hard for some people, though, for
It
sure.
it is. It's
And
hard because you have to look at yourself from an outsider's perspective.
well, you have to look at yourself and be honest with yourself.
Yeah.
Sometimes people have a hard time being honest with themselves.
It takes a lot of
And
accountability.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And
Honesty, accountability, those are tough words for some adults out there.
yes.
Um,
Yeah.
but I will say bullying to me, I hate it. I have such a like distaste for it. Kids who are bullies and people who just diminish it and try to say it's no big deal and kids are kids and stuff like that. To me, kids being kids is way different than being a bully and being and just harassing someone all the time for no reason, just because it makes your sense of worth feel better or it inflates your ego. And I think adults who do the same thing are just trash.
Yeah,
Like
for lack of a better word, for
I
sure.
I am a I hate bullying. I hate it. I think it's just such an ugly behavior at any stage in someone's life, and especially as an adult. If you're an adult and you're still acting like a bully, you're just a child in an adult's body that hasn't mentally matured or grown up. It's kind of the same way I feel about people who are really cocky.
Uh-huh.
Ugh,
Yeah,
ugh.
and definitely, yeah, some red flags for sure. There's,
And the reason I have such a strong like emotion towards it is because when I was a kid, I was bullied. And I think it's just uh, awful behavior. But it's more excusable, I guess, as a child, if that's
It definitely
if
is.
that's an okay or the right thing to say, because I strongly believe that when a child is behaving like that, there is a reason. As a child, you're not waking up and just saying, you know what, I want to be an asshole to this person or these people today. I think there's something more going on there that should be looked at. And then if that doesn't happen, then that's when as an adult, you're just keeping those bad habits and you're that what did you say? Like their self-confidence, I think a lot of times is low. They just portray it to be high, and so they're
Yeah.
hiding something. And when you're an adult and you haven't taken the time to do the work into yourself and you just keep doing that kind of stuff, it's like
Yeah, it's emotional
grow up.
immaturity. Yeah. It is. It's an immaturity in someone.
Hmm.
And more so as an adult, you can be bullied by friends. You can have friends that are bullies
Hmm.
and
Passive aggressive.
yeah, and you can look at them uh for who they are and realize that their actions and some of their behaviors are bullying tactics.
Yeah, it's quality over quantity for sure.
100%.
Um, but with the world that we live in right now, online bullying is what really I think is the forefront center of
100%.
all of all of bullying. It has taken it to a whole different level, childhood or adulthood.
Yeah,
I mean,
you get those.
there's views that people will get like channels. What are they
Mhm.
called? The drama channels or something,
Yeah.
where it's basically all they do is bully everybody. And
Oh, some of those talks of enter your city here, all
oh
that
yeah,
is, you get
yeah.
those Karens that just go online and, or the trolls, what we call trolls, it's just online bullying. It's just
Hmm.
keyboard warriors thinking that they're tough behind a screen.
Anonymous,
Yeah.
post
And
anonymously.
I didn't know you could post anonymously on some of those,
Mhm.
but yeah, I mean, in that aspect of social media, that's really where we are today, especially on TikTok and Instagram and that. And it's just, it allows people to speak freely uh, to the masses, and it can really take off quickly.
Some closing thoughts. Bullying doesn't end when school does. It just changes its outfit.
Hmm.
But you don't have to keep auditioning for people who don't or who only notice you when you're small. You don't have to keep people pleasing. You don't have to keep putting on a good face for people who really don't care. Like you said, Dr. Seuss.
Yeah,
Those who matter don't mind, and those who mind don't matter.
I love that.
Yeah. So
Grown up peace means realizing you don't owe anyone access to you just because they've always had it. You are
exactly.
allowed to walk away. You're allowed to reclaim your peace, say no, and set boundaries.
Absolutely. I love all of that.
Well, thanks for joining us today on our episode of bullying. I hope you learned something.
Yes, we are very excited because we have a new series that we are going to start, and we're going to be doing a little bit of prep work for it. So please go follow us on all of our socials, TikTok, Instagram,
There,
comment
yep.
and like and subscribe our channel. But we'll be putting out some information about this new series that we are going to start. We're super excited about it.
Super pumped. It's going to
Yeah.
be fun.
Yeah.
Instagram and TikTok are both linked in the description below. Leave a comment. And if you want to see what's coming up, stay subscribed because we're going to be dropping some hints all week, and
Yeah.
we're really looking forward to the future for Touch My Health.
Yes. All right, guys. Thank you so much.
Okay, bye.
Bye.